So I received an excellent question regarding coursework-based graduate programs versus research-based or thesis-based graduate programs, and which one that you should go into, and what are the advantages and disadvantages of both. This is an excellent question, and it's very important to think about because, of course, not only is it going to influence what you do during your graduate program, but it's also going to influence the kind of person that you are when you conclude the program for whatever it is that you're trying to go on to. So it's very important to think about. And I think it's very important to think about in advance. So the first thing is this decision may be made for you. First of all, if you're going into a PhD program, there's no such thing as just a coursework-based PhD. A PhD is a research degree. And so, yes, you're going to be doing some coursework. Your graduate committee, and particularly your advisor, may recommend courses for you to take in order to be sure that you don't lack knowledge in particular areas, to make sure there's no deficiency in your knowledge before you go into your research program. That's kind of the purpose of the classes that you take. But then you start your research project, and then that's really what your PhD is about. So no such thing as just a coursework-focused PhD. Now, master's program, there often is. Different programs, and sometimes will offer either a coursework-based master's degree or a research-based master's degree, and sometimes single departments will offer both, have two different tracks, so it's an option for you as a graduate student. So, what should you do? Well, if you choose the research degree, if you choose the research track and do the thesis, then you'll do coursework for the first 3 semesters, and then you will get research credit for your 4th semester while you conclude your thesis. And I say conclude here because a lot of people think that they're going to be doing their thesis during that semester. That's not how it works. I'm going to be going over that, all of that schedule in the seminar. But you will get a whole semester off so you can conclude your research project. If you do the coursework-based master's program, then you'll be doing coursework all 4 semesters. You will also do 2 non-thesis papers, and oftentimes I do think that you can get course credit for the 2 non-thesis papers. You'll get basically 1 course off to write your research papers, or 2 non-thesis research papers. So you don't completely get away from having to write some type of paper just because you're not doing a thesis. Oftentimes, like at the University of Alabama, it was 2 non-thesis papers. Now, depending on who your advisor is, because your advisor is going to sort of lead you in the development of these papers the same way your advisor would lead you in the development of the thesis. Depending on who your advisor is, these 2 non-thesis papers could be fairly robust. And I don't think that's really true that they might be more work than doing a thesis, but those are still require a lot, and just having 1 course off for them, there's still going to be major things that you have to do. So since you do these 2 non-thesis papers, you might decide, well, I'm just going to do the whole thesis, and I think that's probably not a bad thing to do. So even as a master's student, sometimes the decision about which track you're going to enter is made for you. For instance, at the University of Illinois, we only funded students who did a thesis, or every student that was funded was required to take the thesis track. And of course, you want to be funded, you want to go to a university that wants you and is going to give you money in order to do your graduate studies there. And so if you're at a research-based institution, a lot of times they're just not going to fund students who don't want to do master's theses. So that is the case at the University of Illinois. It is a research-based institution. It's got a heavy research focus, of course. It wants graduate students who are interested in research. It's not going to fund anybody who just wants to take more classwork. So if you're thinking about that, then you're definitely going to be doing a master's thesis. And in that case, I would only recommend going to graduate school if that's what you're interested in, if you're interested in doing that research component and not just more coursework. So that's a very important consideration. Another major factor is if you want to go on to a PhD, because if you're planning on going to a PhD, then you need to do a master's thesis, hands down, because your master's thesis is basically going to be a dry run. It's going to be practice for your whole doctoral dissertation. You do not want to go into a doctoral dissertation cold, not having done a master's thesis first, because you're going to learn so much by doing that you're going to apply to your dissertation. And actually, it's going to be an advantage to you to getting into a PhD program, because your advisor or your potential advisors are going to want to talk about what you were doing for research as a master's student, and what is your master's thesis. And if you don't have one, it's going to be a much harder sell that you're going to be an excellent doctoral student. You want to be able to show your research to potential doctoral advisors and not just say that I'm in a coursework-based program and don't have that to show. You really want to be able to show them what you're working on for your master's thesis. Finally, anybody who was thinking about going into a master's program and only wanted to do more coursework, I would really want to talk to them about why. Because you really want to be sure when you're evaluating programs to go into that they're going to have enough courses for you to take that are interesting, that are really going to advance you toward what you want to do. Because I know, especially in technical fields like GIS, some students will think that, well, if I go and do a GIS master's program and do it coursework based, I am really going to be, a GIS whiz by the time that I come out of that master's program. But I want to emphasize that a master's program, even a coursework based master's program, is not technical school. It's not technical training in GIS. For instance, if you've done an intro to GIS class as an undergrad, and then you are looking at the different courses that are available as a graduate student, they'll have Introduction to GIS, and it's a graduate level introduction. But if you've taken Introduction to GIS as an undergrad, you don't need to take Intro to GIS again, because sure, it's a graduate level class. That just means that there'll be different assignments, you'll be assessed differently, you may get different exams, you may have to do a paper at the end or a small project, but the material is going to be the same, because what you teach in Intro to GIS is Intro to GIS. There's introductory material that's going to be taught to anyone who doesn't have that material before. So that's not going to help you. So there have to be other classes. If you're going to take that, you're going to be very disappointed because it's not going to be moving you along to especially what you wanted to be if you wanted to be like the ultimate GIS technician by the time that you close that. You're still going to be around people who are academics, who are interested in research, and who have that kind of focus. And so if you're trying to become that expert GIS technician, the first thing I would do, and that's why you're considering going to graduate school, what I would do is I would encourage you to look around for alternate ways to get the information that you want to get. And that may be doing online courses, that may be doing like software-based courses for different technical certifications, software certifications. It may be going to conferences that are very technical focused where you can take training seminars while you're there, and you may be able to bring yourself to the kind of technical proficiency that you want in a faster, more direct way, and also probably less expensive way than enrolling in a whole graduate studies program, even for coursework. So definitely evaluate that. I guess my thing would be to say that if you're thinking about doing a master's degree, then you should be interested in doing the research component. And if you're not, then I would definitely have you take a look at alternate ways to get the information. Now, it still may be right for you. It still may be right for you, but I feel like a lot of people think of that coursework-based master's program as kind of a default for more information, advancing myself, especially kind of in a technical way. And that is really not what it's for, and it is certainly not, or certainly may not be the best way to do it. So definitely look at alternate ways to get that information. So that's very important because, like I said, it's obviously not something you want to take lightly. A lot of people don't recognize all the different sort of consequences of these choices when they start taking them, and it's kind of like, well, do I want to write a thesis or not? Yes or no? Okay, well then I'll choose one option. But it really does matter with what your goals are and the kind of person that you want to be by the time that you get out of graduate studies. So I hope that helped. It was an excellent question. I look forward to seeing you for more videos and for the seminar.